Live at lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff.
For some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Is it live? Is it live? Is it live?
From Snow's Seafood and Steak, Airline Highway at 74 in Gonzales. Welcome to the Wednesday edition. Live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Charles Hannegriff along with Max Gotro. Jordan Kinchin's back in the studio. We're on day 3 of SEC Media Days. Alabama, A&M, Ole Miss, Florida. More of a heavyweight and, well, used to be heavyweight kind of day.
Working to a crescendo, I think.
Is Lane Kiffin the crescendo of SEC Media Days? Is Arch Manning the crescendo of SEC Media Days? Is Steve Sarkisian the crescendo of SEC Media Days? Are they really the headliners? Look, we first started going this thing in the 90s. Florida and Tennessee were the clear headliners, along with Alabama, who was good but not quite as good as those two teams in the mid 90s. And they spread them out a little bit. I remember the year that Phil Fulmer was going to get a subpoena from the court was in Alabama, I think, and it was over that recruiting deal, and so he just didn't show. He just decided not to come that day, and they did what this would have been like 1998 or so, I think, maybe 99. He just said, "Yeah, we'll do a video conference." Well, that was like a big deal. It's like, wait, we're all going to huddle around this monitor and hear what Fulmer has to say, because
Zoom
he knew
didn't really exist.
Well, he knew as soon as he walked in they were going to serve him with this subpoena, and he didn't want any part of it. So they had to apparently serve him in Alabama. I don't remember all the details. I do remember that he was on a monitor. But those were the headlines. When Spurrier came in to the lobby, it was a huge mob that would go to him. When Peyton Manning got there, okay, Danny Werfel, yeah, but they knew how to build it and spread it out. In a lot of years, this would have been if Alabama and Florida had been there on the same day, that would have been the biggest deal. And Alabama, I understand that it's not in Alabama this year. I don't want to call them under the radar, because Alabama's never under the radar. But you know what, Max? They're a little bit under the radar, because some of the bigger stories are somewhere. Think about Alabama. They do not have a coaching vacancy coming up. They signed Kalen DeBoer to a contract extension. They're coming off of a playoff berth. That's really good, right? No, not really. Not over there. They do have a quarterback battle, if that's what we're going to call it. But this is about it. I'm not going to say they're under the radar, but yeah, they're under the radar as much as they ever get.
Yeah, I don't see Bama even cracking the top 3 of like biggest storylines in this SEC Media Days, which is very strange. But I mean, you're right. It feels like the best you're going to get is First Take and all the ESPN national broadcasters who are on Monday and Tuesday are talking about Lane Kiffin and LSU and the expectations, and they're going up on Thursday. And the only way that Alabama is being compared is, who's under more pressure to win this year, is DeBoer or Kiffin. That's what I've seen, actually, on the national outlets. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like DeBoer's the one that would get fired at the end of the year. I don't think Lane Kiffin would be fired after 1 year. So, yeah, it seems to me that DeBoer's under more pressure. But, yeah, I guess the expectations are even higher there, and you wouldn't think so considering kind of the teams. I think it's probably pretty similar in terms of expectation from the fan base, but DeBoer's got to live up to a higher standard considering his track record and who he followed.
The contract extension to me changes everything. If DeBoer had been on the original contract, which ran through 2031, and was coming into this season, I would absolutely wholeheartedly tell you that he was on a hot seat. He wouldn't be on a hot seat very many other places, if any other place. You get in 2 years, you've won your fair share of games. You made the playoff. You won a playoff game. That doesn't put you in danger of being fired pretty much anywhere else. At Alabama, it might be a little bit different. But they extended the contract. They took that off the table. So Kalen DeBoer versus the pressure on him versus Lane Kiffin. I even heard Kirby Smart this morning. It's like, wait a minute. Kirby Smart's got the coldest seat of any coach maybe in the country.
Kurt Cignetti,
I guess. Yeah. But no, there's no pressure on Curry. He won the SEC the last 2 years. He's got 2 national championships. No. But I don't know that there's anything on DeBoer that he has to win a certain amount of games this year. With $90 million in buyout, I swore I wasn't going to do this again. Where I said, well, they just don't have the money to do it. But it's not so much the money. Yes, if they absolutely had to, I guess they could find the money. But their administration sent a clear message with that contract extension that, no, this is our guy. This is going to be our guy long term. This is the guy we want. This is not the guy we fell backwards into. We trust him to get Alabama football to where we want it to be. I don't know if that's going to happen. I would have never. Most of the media people that commented on this thing didn't understand why DeBoer's contract was extended. He wasn't going to take another job based on the contract. If he wanted to take the Michigan job when it opened up, he could have taken the Michigan job. Michigan would have matched the money. They could have taken care of the buyout and all that stuff. So extending the contract, I don't think, was going to keep him there if he really wanted to go to Michigan. And what other job is going to open up that he's just going to say, well, you know what, I would have taken that job except for this contract extension? I don't know of any. So he's there. They want him there. I don't know how many games Alabama's going to win, though. I don't know who's going to play quarterback for Alabama. Setting a line on – people asked at the Alabama game. Setting a line on that game right now I think is pretty tough given that you don't know who's going to play quarterback for Alabama. You don't know – and even if you did, you don't know how well they're going to play quarterback. You say the same thing for LSU, I guess, but at least Sam Levitt's got a track record somewhere else. So when you talk about the heat on Alabama, I'm almost of the opinion that it's less than it was a year ago. If DeBoer would have gone 7-5 last year, he might have got fired before any of this contract extension stuff came up. Well, now that you get to that point, you get the contract extension, he's safe. They may stink, but I think he's safe.
7-5, he's safe
after the extension. Yeah, I think they would say, okay, one more year, but.
Just looking at their schedule, if they go 7-5, that's as bad as they can get. And I'm not saying, look, SEC schedules are all hard, but yeah, there are more difficult schedules in the SEC than Alabama's got. I mean, road trips to Tennessee, LSU aren't great, but they got Mississippi State and Vanderbilt. That's about as good of a draw you can get for 2 of those road games. You get A&M, Georgia, South Carolina at home, and then you get Kentucky on the road too. So you got 3 of your road games are against the bottom 5 of the league, I would say. Could be worse. So if you want to find 5 losses in there, I'm sure you could, but that would be pretty poor. And I would manage to say that might be a situation where he might not be in the most secure position. But sure, the extension certainly changes some things, and even if they miss the playoff, I would imagine sticking with DeBoer and just putting your resources into your next year's roster might make more sense in that situation. I'm
going to take another SEC power here, okay? Maybe not as powerful as they once were. Tennessee the last 2 years is 18-8 with a playoff appearance and a loss, pretty embarrassing loss, okay? A blowout loss in the playoff, right? That's the last 2 years at Tennessee. The last 2 years at Alabama, they're 20-8 with a playoff win and a playoff blowout loss. The difference between essentially the difference between Tennessee and Alabama the last 2 years is a playoff win over Oklahoma for Alabama. That's otherwise their records are. Maybe I should say that the loss in the SEC championship game for Alabama, but they don't really. That's no longer the big, monument that it once was. Is Josh Heupel under any pressure?
Yes.
You think?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, there were discussions about him leaving Tennessee in the offseason, maybe his name getting floated out for other jobs, and it seemed like there were some Tennessee fans who, maybe the pressure's on this year.
That sounded like to me. But you talking about prior to last year?
No, this was this offseason.
Okay.
His name got just somewhat mentioned in some
So
other jobs.
this to me, this sounds like an agent that's floating his name because he wants one of these extensions also. That whenever these names come up, well, he might go there, he might go there. The chances of him actually jumping ship for another big
leverage
job.
play.
It's all about, you create a dialogue and you say, well, you know what? Kalen DeBoer could have gone to Michigan. Nah, okay, I guess he could have, but I wouldn't have counted on it. Where's Josh Heupel's? Where's he going to go? Who is going to actively go out and throw more money at Josh Heupel than he's got at Tennessee right now?
I feel like there were a couple days where he was mentioning an LSU job. Not seriously, wasn't seriously considered. I don't think LSU fans would have been very excited about that, but I remember his name being floated out there on the odds boards and things like that.
Well, odds boards. I cannot imagine a scenario under which Josh Heupel would have been the LSU coach. If Lane Kiffin doesn't work out, I think there are another half dozen names down the list before they get to Josh Heupel. But hey, look, you'd be a good agent because you're hey, you know what, my guy, he's got a lot of there's a lot of interest in him out there. I don't know that there is not from a big time program.
How good of a job has he done?
Heupel?
What do we think about Josh Heupel? Because they're trying to run it this year with an unknown at quarterback, a major unknown. Now, the rest of their roster, I think, has some promise. I think they've done a pretty good job of running the ball behind good offensive lines, and they return a lot there. Ori Williams is the right tackle now, so that's a familiar name. But everybody else, they've got some familiarity, and they've typically been good on the defensive front. They've always done a good job with their pass rush. So if you can figure out the quarterback, don't you think they could be a relevant, sort of in the mix contender coming in November?
Here's what I remember about everything from Fulmer to Heupel. Okay, it was a disaster. They went through multiple coaches. I mean, they went through, I'm sorry, some pretty bad coaches. All right, Derek Dooley was a bad SEC head coach. He was a fine recruiting coordinator or whatever when he was here, and he's a nice guy. But was he a good SEC head coach? He was not. Butch Jones was not a good SEC head coach. He's done fine at lower levels, but he's not good. From Fulmer to Heupel was just such a disaster.
Jeremy Pruitt,
who ended up out of the sport pretty much. No, I think Heupel has done fine. Has he done as well as Tennessee did in their heyday under, Johnny Majors or under Phil Fulmer? No.
Well, that's their expectation. But is that fair for Josh Heupel?
No, not anymore. No. The SEC that Phil Fulmer left in 2008 is not anything resembling the SEC in 2026. So what do I think of Heupel? I think he's done plenty enough to keep his job. I don't think he's done anywhere near enough that where he would be a hot candidate or somebody would come in and steal him away. But if he had that record at Alabama, I would be very. Well, he probably wouldn't have made it this far.
Their schedule's manageable too. Just looking at it, I think by November they could, if they beat Texas or Bama at home. Before November, their road games are not too difficult. They've got Arkansas and South Carolina on the road. And then they go into November, they could have one loss, realistically. They got to go to Georgia Tech in week 2, but Georgia Tech's not quite what they were. They lost the quarterback.
Changing quarterback also.
So, I mean, I see a path to them having one loss heading into November 14th, at Kyle Field. I mean, there's a path for them, and if you're talking about all these SEC teams that could beat each other up, which seems very reasonable that you could have a bunch of 9-3 teams once again this year. Tennessee could certainly be among those that are going in November, last month of the season, and they have a chance. And I think Josh Heupel's just got to figure out the quarterback situation because the rest of their roster, I'll be honest, they've got some returning guys, maybe not so much on the defensive front, but I kind of like what they have coming back, and I think Heupel's done a decent enough job to garner some respect coming into this season.
We're here at Snow's Airline Highway at 74 in Gonzales. Lunch specials today, including one of my favorites here is the eggplant parmesan. It is the fried golden brown crusted eggplant with the melted mozzarella cheese, a homemade marinara sauce. You serve that over the angel hair pasta, the creamy Alfredo sauce. One of my favorites here at Snow's. The beef tips chimichurri, Southwest mahi bowl, the pepper jack shrimp, which is also outstanding, that creamy pepper jack cheese sauce served with fresh green beans. You want a sandwich? The California Chicken Club on special today. Crispy bacon, Swiss cheese, fresh avocados, all on a toasted bun. Salads today, the seafood pasta salad. That's a tricolored pasta with crawfish and shrimp. Very, very tangy homemade dressing for the seafood pasta salad. And the Asian chicken salad, marinated chicken breast over mixed greens. A little bit lighter there with the Asian chicken salad here at Snow's on Airline at 74 in Gonzales. Live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Relief windows for windows, vinyl, storm impact windows, wood windows. That's like I had to. If your homeowners association requires wood windows like mine does, there is only one solution. You got to go to Relief Windows. Relief Windows and reliefwindows.com. I've had them for about 6 or 8 years. They are built to last in these extreme southern Louisiana weather conditions. They look brand new. They're functional on a nice fall or spring day. I love opening it up, getting some fresh air. Functional, look great, and they are no signs of deteriorating at all. Not the same with normal wood windows. It's not a cheap procedure, so do it right the right time and don't have this recurring cost a little bit later down the road like I did. Yeah, I was in the market for it. I sure wish I'd have used Relief Windows with the original construction of my homes. For windows, doors, siding, shutter, and shades, go to reliefwindows.com. 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. Relief Windows, 288-8138.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Snow Seafood and Steak in Gonzales on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Remember, you can always get the show on demand, 104.5 ESPN.com, LouisianaSports.net, brought to you by Supreme Rice and SupremeRice.com, supporting our Louisiana farmers and in business, now celebrating 90 years here in 2026. Go to SupremeRice.com. A&M is also at the podium today. You know, this represents, to me, the biggest liability on LSU's, or the biggest opportunity for a loss in September for LSU. The spot of the game is very, very difficult for LSU to come off that Ole Miss game and come back home. This was a playoff roster a year ago. This is a quarterback there's a coach now in his third year, is settled in nicely. And it's a quarterback that has given LSU fits the last 2 seasons, season and a half if you want to count the second half of the game in College Station. Max, I know that the Clemson game is going to get a ton of the attention to open up, and whatever amount of attention the Clemson game gets, multiplied times 100, and that's what the Ole Miss game is going to get. This, to me, is the biggest the longest shot for LSU to win, the game they're least likely to win of the 5 games in September.
I would agree. I think part of it, you have to kind of tell me how the Ole Miss game goes. You could say Ole Miss is the harder game because it's on the road, and they're going to be nasty.
Is Ole Miss? Let's take the home field out of it for a second. Is Ole Miss better than A&M right now? Do we think that? I don't. I'm curious.
I don't believe so either. But you know, we got to weigh in home field advantage. I think that's going to be quite a difference there, just on the surface. Now the spot, as you mentioned, coming off of the Ole Miss game, will make it difficult. But it's hard for me to see LSU going 2-0 in those 2 games, and that's kind of the problem that I have with LSU, and why I see a ceiling of 2 losses. I think they have two groups of games in which I struggle to see how they don't lose a game in each of them. You've got Ole Miss and then A&M, and then you have your gauntlet of 3 games in November where you host Bama, Texas, and then go to Tennessee. So if I'm going to give a loss in each of those batches, then you can't lose another game, and you could easily lose another one of those in those batches, but then you have Clemson, you have at Auburn, you have, I guess Kentucky or whoever else you want to throw in there to mix in. So it's very difficult for me to see LSU getting, an 11-1 season just based on their schedule, and a big part of that is that A&M game.
A&M returns 18 starters, and a lot of those starters somewhere. Okay.
Yes, because that's a big thing. I was going to ask you. I mean, don't we trust Mike Elko to get the line of scrimmage right? Because they've got a lot of new faces. They've got some starters, but I'm just looking at their O-line. Starting O-line, you've got a right guard from South Carolina. You got Tyree Adams, of course, at left tackle. He's from LSU. You've got a transfer from Bama as your projected right tackle. So they've got a lot of new faces who should have, they have starting level experience. So I think the problem that I have with A&M and why they scare me is I trust Mike Elko to get the line of scrimmage sorted out. They've been very good on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage.
They're physical. He has very physical teams. Adams, okay, this will be a good litmus test as to what happened here last year. You think Tyree Adams had a good year here last year? No, I didn't think he had a good year at all. But he is penciled in there as a starter. Now, if you'd asked me also if Weston Davis had a good year last year at right tackle, I would have said no. In fact, I thought he had a worse year than Adams did. But he is penciled in as a starter here. Okay, this continues to be this continues to reflect poorly, I think, on Brad Davis. If Adams turns out to be a really good left tackle at A&M, and Davis turns out to be a really good right tackle at LSU, and Bo Bordelon, who was on your roster a year ago, has beaten out, I understand he's a fifth-year senior now, has beaten out a guy who Ole Miss brought with them in Devin Moore that they thought was going to be their starting left tackle this year. If that's 3 guys, if they all end up, and Braylon Moore is a pretty good center, then it's like, wait a minute, you had enough here last year. You just didn't do anything with them. They went somewhere else, and they were just fine. Or you brought in another coach here, and they were just fine. I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel. But getting back to your thing about Elko, yeah, I trust him to get the line of scrimmage right. But more than anything, I want to know how they're going to contain the quarterback. You remember the stories about, how are you going to contain the running quarterback? And Alabama trashed you 2 years in a row, and A&M has trashed you the last year and a half with a running quarterback. So you tell me if that's going to get fixed by the time A&M gets here.
It just seems like everyone just looks past Marcel Reed. I'm trying to figure that out. Maybe he's not the best quarterback ever, but I mean, what does he have to do? I guess I find.
Oh, I can tell you why he's being overlooked right now. They scored 3 points in a playoff game with everybody watching.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm not saying it was all on him. I watched that game. Miami's defensive front spent the afternoon in the A&M backfield, but especially Bain. But I can't excuse. I can just say you had a home playoff game. You had a really good team, and you scored 3 points. And this is coming off of a loss at Texas. So the way they finished is why, in my opinion,
sure.
The offseason.
No, that's fair. The win was a factor in that game. We can't forget that. That was a part of it. I don't know. He scored 41 against Notre Dame. They scored 34 against a good Florida defense. We know they scored 49 against LSU. I mean, I don't know.
Those were earlier in the season.
Okay.
I think the guys. You're asking me why he's being overlooked in the offseason. I think the way that they finished is why.
Fair. I think higher of him than I guess most do.
Well,
I'll put it that way.
If you're an LSU person, how can you not? You've watched this guy put up video game numbers in the last 2 seasons. But I think that you're in year 3 for Elko. He's got a real firm grip on that program now. There's no more transition. He's got his philosophies. He's got his culture in there, and that culture is to be physical. And so if you're going to come off of an emotional game against Clemson, an emotional game on the road against Ole Miss, and you're going to come home and play this physical A&M team, I think that's a tall order.
It seems like you get punched in the mouth in that spot. Coming off a win, if you don't dare to have, I'm sure the crowd would be very much in it. You're going to have a home field advantage, if you're coming off an Ole Miss game. But yeah, I agree. That's why I'm like I said, I've penciled in one loss at least in September because I just think that 2-game stretch, even if you give Clemson as an easy win, if you think it's going to go that way, I mean those 2 games, I don't know how. I think A&M is the harder of the 2 games. I will agree with you there.
Who can run with Reed? Because they thought that last year it was like, well, they'll let Perkins run with Reed. Well, that didn't really work. Can T.J. Daugherty run with Reed? Can Whit Weeks run with Reed? Can Devon Keys run with Reed? Can Deshaun Spears run with Reed? I think all of these guys are physically capable, but when you've tried to spy him, it hasn't worked all that well. And some of this stuff was just designed runs that he was able to hurt them. And just when you think you got him bottled up, he's not a terrible passer. I wouldn't consider him an elite passer by any means, but he's good enough that he can keep you off balance. And that he has driven LSU nuts the last 2 years. Anyway, Elko and them are at the podium right now.
Intriguing team. Is there a coach in the SEC other than Kirby that I think we could give as much credit to? Mike Elko? I mean, A&M had all the expectations for years, but he's the one that actually seems like he's I don't want to say broken through. They haven't really won anything yet. But
can I cheat on the answer? Are we counting Lane Kiffin? He got Ole Miss to the national semifinals, sort of. I mean, there's an asterisk because he didn't coach the playoff games, but Kiffin took a program not as good as A&M and got them higher than A&M all the way up until the end. But of the current sitting coaches where they are right now, I'm struggling. You want to give Brent Venables credit for getting in the playoffs last year, and
he was on the hot seat going into last year.
And remember what else he got? A contract. Mm-hmm. A contract very similar to DeBoer. Got a contract extension after the season, going into a year where most people thought he would be on the hot seat. It's like, well, you gave him a contract. Why? Why would you? Who was coming to get him? But to get back to your original question, Eli Drinkwitz maybe certainly has taken that program to a pretty high level. Now, when they first got in the SEC, Gary Pinkel got them in back-to-back SEC championship games. But there's actually been some consistency at Missouri, who we always forget, right? Clark Lee. Did he just catch lightning in a bottle with a special quarterback, or are they going to be good? Yesterday he said, hey, we're going to be good again. You believe that? I don't believe 10 wins again.
Yeah, what's good?
I mean,
define good. For Vanderbilt.
For Vanderbilt, if they came back and went 8-4 this year, wouldn't that be a terrific success? I mean, you got the stud freshman quarterback. 8 wins off of 10 wins. It'd only be the most successful stretch in Vanderbilt history, right? What were you 2 years? Pavia's first year, they were 9-4, I think.
7-6.
Oh gosh, they were worse than I thought. Okay,
and then 10-3
last year. Yeah, so if you win 8 games this year, that's the most successful 2-year stretch in Vanderbilt history. Yeah, that would be a tremendous success. We're here at Snow's Seafood and Steak again. SEC Media Days continuing from over in Tampa. We're also brought to you by the Thibodeau Store. You're doing gardening right now, you are in luck. Up to 50% off of your lawn and garden essentials from the Thibodeau Store. The Pierre Part Store open in Lockport and LaRose. If you're doing construction on your property, lumber delivery is available out of 2 of the locations, so they can bring your building supplies and your lumber there. Same-day pickup on everything that is on the website. Also specials right now on outdoor cooking equipment and your extras, cordless power tools, patio furniture, poolside furnitures, spreaders and cedars, outdoor power equipment. Pierre Part Store, Highway 70 in Pierre Part, and the Thibodeau Store, 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodeau, open daily until 5:30 p.m. Remember, you get all 4 locations at the one website, thethibodeaustore.com. Live at Snow's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
don't forget our friends at Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown, your law firm for a lifetime. You get in a car accident like I did, it's just it's not fun. So pick up the phone, call 343-1111. You can go to the website at ocbrown.com and you can schedule it there. As soon as you pull up the main page, it'll direct you accordingly. It's easily, and that's what we never charge for that initial consultation. If you get in a car accident, you need it. Everybody knows that, and we'll take care of that. We'll pay for your doctor bills, set up the doctor bills, just eliminate as much of the stress and inconvenience that goes along with this. And that's where Dana comes in, especially negotiating with the insurance companies, which there's an art involved in that. So do like I did when I got into a car accident. Call our friends at Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown. Your law firm for a lifetime, 343-1111 at ocbrown.com.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Snow Seafood and Steak. Ken Gonzalez on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Back here at Snow's live at lunch. Come by and see us. The lunch specials, which you can get throughout the week here. The pepper jack shrimp with fresh green beans, Southwest Mahi Bowl, the beef tips chimichurri, and the eggplant parmesan, which is absolutely fantastic here at Snow's Seafood and Steak. Here since 1971, which means that they're as old as me. Some things get better with age. Snow's does. Jury's still out a little bit on whether I'm better.
Come on.
The podium for Clark Lee yesterday was, I think, different than any Vanderbilt coach that we've ever heard talk. Even when James Franklin was there wasn't this level of expectation. And since we brought it up, I wanted to bring this clip. This was Clark Lee talking about what it is now to have expectations at Vanderbilt.
Naturally, people want to compare this team to last year's team. And while there are similarities, there are also important differences. Different players, different coaches, different leaders, different personalities, different strengths, different challenges. Despite these differences, this group has inherited something that previous teams did not, a Vanderbilt football program that expects to win. With that inheritance comes standard over excuses, responsibility over entitlement, commitment over convenience. That inheritance gives us a foundation, but our story still must be earned.
What an orator. Wow.
That was really good. He enunciates very well. We're just a couple of years removed from everybody laughing at this guy when he expected Vanderbilt to be a contender. I think you got to give him a little bit of credit now. You know, last year that this was a team that beat LSU, that beat Auburn, that beat Tennessee at Tennessee, and really, Alabama got away from them a little bit late. Pavia was hurt in that game. That one might have gone a little bit differently on a different day. And then the Texas game that, again, could have gone either way. This was a hell of an attempt, a hell of a year for them. And like I said, we're just a couple of years away from saying, well, we can bet Vanderbilt's over 2.5 because they're going to beat Cal Poly and they might beat Georgia State. Well, now they've taken on the SEC heavyweights. But can it continue? And I think that's what everybody wants to know. Was it Pavia, or do you have in place now a nucleus and a culture that you can win with consistently at Vandy?
It's a real question. I mean, Jared Curtis comes in, top-ranked freshman quarterback. I guess he's going to start out, I have to imagine. What do they have better
If he
than
doesn't
him?
start the first game, I can't imagine he's not going to be the starter very, very quickly. And if I'm Vanderbilt, I want him to play Austin Peay in Delaware.
Right, yeah.
I don't want to throw him into the fire against, well, who do they play in the first
NC
the first
State
conference
at Auburn.
games at Auburn, and then they go to Georgia, and then they play Ole Miss. So, no, I want him to play Austin Peay in Delaware. And then they got an interesting non-conference game with NC State, and a lot of people are high on C.J. Bailey. That was a name that LSU looked at one point last year when it looked like he might transfer. So, yes, he's got to go in there very, very quick. If nobody brings in guys to sit anymore, Vanderbilt's not bringing in the biggest recruit in their history. This is the biggest recruit in their history. So he doesn't sit for very long.
I wouldn't think so. I don't know what to think about Vanderbilt, Charlie. I know I'm supposed to have an opinion here. I don't. So much of their offense, we give so much credit to Diego Pavia. And they also lose Eli Stowers, who is very, very vital for him. It seemed like every big target they needed, they were looking his way, and he delivered for them in so many ways. Not really a blocking tight end. He's kind of more outside guy, but I mean, I also would quibble a little bit at the fact that Texas was that close. They were getting killed in that game, kind of backdoored it.
It did.
So,
it did get, you're right. Yeah.
Bama and Texas. Bama was arguably even closer, I would almost say, than Texas was. And they went on the road and lost both those games. Now that they beat Tennessee at the end of the year on the road, so I'll give them credit there. Did it ever feel like they were really close to contending last year, like to a national championship? I would say no.
Not a national championship, but
the playoff. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
they were in that mix.
If they had caught a Alabama on a little bit different scenario, okay, again with Pavia that day. If you don't know what to think about Vanderbilt, think about them this way. They have more winning seasons in the last 2 years than Florida and Auburn have combined in the last 4. So they play Auburn and Florida this year. Auburn and Florida are traditional SEC heavyweights. Vanderbilt is new money. Excuse the expression. Vanderbilt has more winning seasons in the last 2 years than Florida and Auburn combined in the last 4. Sentences I never thought I would say, okay? So if you're going to be a perennial contender or at least elevate yourself, those are the games that you have to win. And you go to Florida and you go to Auburn. You're going to win both those games? And one of them's early and one of them's late. So if you're talking about, well, how does the quarterback develop? Well, let's say he's good enough to win the second game, but maybe he's still kind of feeling his way at the first one. Then you're going to play all kind of teams with first-year coaches, including Auburn and Arkansas and Kentucky and Florida and Mississippi State, who's not very good. There's potential wins all over the place. I don't know that there's any guaranteed wins. That depends on the quarterback. But there's all kinds of what games are not – they're not going to win at Georgia, okay? And I don't think they're going to beat Tennessee 2 years in a row. But the rest of these games, they get Alabama at home. They beat Alabama at home the last time they played them.
Before, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not telling you I think that they're definitely going to beat Alabama, but they could. There's winnable games all up and down this schedule. Getting them to 7 or 8 wins is doable. It's really doable. This was so the question remains: how much does the offense change without Pavia? And Clark Lee answered that question yesterday.
I think there's so much attention being given right now to how this offense will take shape, specifically who's going to take the snaps. And though that is an important question, what I'm more interested in ahead of training camp is how is this team strengthening in all the other areas that will support that position. So the mission is winning. That certainly hasn't changed. So what are we going to do defensively? How are we going to perform better on third down to generate more possessions, to get opportunity to an offense that I know is going to have the ability to move the ball? Offensive line play. I think we replaced a lot of snaps with a lot of snaps, and I think we feel really good right now about where that group is. How are they going to win the point of attack and establish a line of scrimmage dominance that allows for this run game to get going? Because Cedi Alexander and MK Young are two of the best, most talented backs in our conference. And if all of a sudden these things are falling into place and we're strengthening in those other areas, you've just lifted burden off the guy that's taking the snaps.
That whole clip to me screams, I don't want to talk about my quarterback because I don't want to put any more pressure on him than he's already had. We saw this happen. The best example I can come up with is Tim Couch. Tim Couch was the number 1 player in the country, but he was from Kentucky, so he went to Kentucky, and everybody expected him to be, everything for Kentucky and completely turn the program around. And the first year, Bill Curry was still there, and they were running an offense that absolutely did not play to Tim Couch's strengths. He ended up being a number one pick in the draft. He didn't do much in the pros. But that level of player going to this level of program is kind of what I go back to. This quarterback will not have to put up with what Tim Couch did. They're putting the pieces around him. And I think what Lee is saying here is I want to deflect everything off of the quarterback that I possibly can, because this is going to be hard enough for him to take this leadership role.
Vanderbilt has more SEC wins than Kentucky, Auburn, Arkansas, and Mississippi State since 2022. That's 4 years. He's done a pretty good job.
So, read me that list again.
Vanderbilt is 11-21 in the last 4 seasons in SEC play. That's ahead of Kentucky, Auburn, Arkansas, Mississippi State. Now, I know those are mostly considered bottom feeders, but Auburn, I mean, they've been pretty good. One less loss in the conference play than Florida.
If you only go back 3 years, If you only go back 3 years, you can add Florida to the list. Florida and Auburn, those are SEC heavyweights, and they have been in. They were. Let's see if they can continue that. We're live here at Snow's Seafood and Steak Airline at 74 in Gonzales. Live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Yes, don't forget our friends at Go Chevrolet in LaPlace, Go Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Plaquemine, Go Chevrolet West in Plaquemine, and Go Ford in Waveland, Mississippi. My buddies Lee Carney and Nick Richard doing a wonderful job. Mention my name, Jimmy Ott, for VIP pricing, whether you're in the market for a new vehicle or a pre-owned vehicle with extension of the factory warranty. We have a certified body shop as well, and our concierge service department, there's nothing like it. You talk about convenience on a different level. I don't just talk about the great vehicles from the Go Automobile Dealership family. My Tahoe came from Go Chevrolet in LaPlace. The Go Automobile Dealership family.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Snow Seafood and Steak in Gonzales on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Back here at Snow's Live at lunch. The Couchy odds on LeBron James's next location. I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time talking about LeBron James, although I will tell you that there is a considerable amount of interest in where he's going on the Couchy markets. Will we say? How much did we say was in that market yesterday?
It was reached $200 million.
$200 million of people bet on where LeBron's going to end up next. So, no, Jimmy, we may not care, but there are people that do care. Yesterday, these things took a little bit of a bounce yesterday when the Heat online media people their social media department made a little bit of a snafu.
I would say so. Maybe it wasn't accidental, but the Miami Heat's official YouTube channel for a very short time had a LeBron James introductory press conference scheduled for July 27th. So that is, next Monday? And they deleted it since. But that's got a lot of people going. The Couchy odds went up to 49% for Miami at the moment. That's the highest they've been in maybe ever for the Heat at this point. Our friends over at the DraftKings Sportsbook have the Heat as minus 200 favorites to land LeBron James for next season. So interesting. Do you believe this is an accident or whatnot? I think the next question would be, do you think LeBron has made his decision at this point? Rich Paul, his agent, said that they're not going to be rushed into this decision, but do you think that he still has a decision to make, or is he just waiting to announce it?
No, I think he's made his decision. I think there's probably some things in the works about how he wants to go about announcing it and, who he wants to tell first, because everybody's been courting him. I do believe that this was a mistake by the social media group. They didn't mean to do this, but was it because they were just preparing in case, or was it because they were preparing because they were told to? I'll tell you what this happens with a lot. This is one of these little inside the baseball secrets about the media is when there are slow times in newspaper, they used to, and now online media as well, they used to go prepare obituaries for people that were aging or sick, and that way that when somebody passed, They would have the obituary ready to go. So they would write these obituaries long before the person died. And I think it was NBC got in trouble once where they actually they put out the Joe DiMaggio obituary before DiMaggio actually died. Okay, that's bad. But just because they had it written didn't mean that they thought that he died. They were preparing it for when he passed. They were preparing this for when LeBron gets there.
You think the social media team would be finding out before most of the world? I don't think so.
No, that's why I buy the accident story.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm naive. Hour number 2 straight ahead here at Snows 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Snow Seafood and Steak in Gonzales on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Return here at Snows in Gonzales. Come by and see us today. The lunchtime specials all week long include the eggplant parmesan, the beef tips chimichurri, the Southwest Mahi Bowl. That's the grilled marinated mahi over rice, red cabbage, roasted corn, and black bean salsa, shaved jalapenos, avocados, and fresh cilantro. You got all that. Put a little Chipotle ranch dressing on that. Pepper jack shrimp with the pepper jack cheese sauce and fresh green beans. California Chicken Club, great soups and salads as well. Seafood pasta salad today, the tricolored pasta with crawfish and shrimp and a very tangy homemade dressing. I want to talk about Auburn a little bit as we move through here for SEC Media Days. It is officially talking season. It's hard to believe, Max, but Auburn has not had a winning season non-COVID since 2019. 2019's been a minute. LSU remembers the 2019 season. They had a winning season by one game in COVID. We've thrown a lot of the COVID stuff just kind of out the window. So that's 5 straight non-COVID losing seasons in a row. I don't want to remind any LSU fans about when LSU went through 6 of these in the late 80s and into the 90s. It's excruciating. So they've changed coaches again. And what I think, are going to get back to, or what Alex Golesh has said they want to get back to, is the physical style of play that Auburn has been known for. No matter who the coach was for years and years at Auburn, you could always count on a physical team, a team that could run the football, tailback after tailback that they would produce that would end up in the pros. They've gotten away from that. I thought that they got away from that a little bit under Brian Harsin, and I was expecting Hugh Freeze to bring some of it back. Really never happened. First of all, but before we get to the clip, what did you think of Golesh at South Florida?
I liked him a lot. He would have been one of the names that if LSU went way down the totem pole, I'd have been okay with. Summerall was better to me than Golesh, just his track record. But
I think he'd have been higher on the LSU list than Josh Heupel. Now, money plays a role there because of what they would have had to pay to get Heupel out. They were willing to pay that for Lane Kiffin. I don't think they would have been willing to pay that for Josh Heupel. I think Golesh would have been higher on the list than Heupel. But again, that's not just football for football. That's money thrown in there too. But I liked what he did.
I like Golesh. I like Golesh a lot. I think he's good offensive mind, good head coach. I like Golesh.
This is not the easiest job. At Auburn, you have, not that it's all that different from maybe LSU or Alabama in this regard, but there's political forces at play there. You don't have a lot of time. You're not going to be given, 4 years to get this right. You're going to have to come out and at least give some hope that you're going in the right direction very, very quickly. So when Golesh started talking about what they needed to do, what's a success in year number 1?
I don't really have any goals other than laying a foundation for what Auburn football is going to be for years to come, and that starts with building an identity. And this word identity is the only thing we've talked about as a program. And the first piece of this identity that we've hammered home is the ability to be physically and mentally tough, the ability to be the most violent football team on the field every Saturday. Violent. I think that's something you can watch and see. A football team that's connected. Guys score, do they celebrate together? Guys make mistakes, do people pick them up? Create an explosive on defense. Is everybody in there celebrating together? A group that communicates extremely well, a group that plays for each other, a group that has leadership, and it has to come from the guys on the field. We've spent a lot of time building leaders. And a team that's incredibly detailed. We talk about winning in the margins. You watch a team play, and are they detailed in what they do? Is situational football look like the way it's supposed to? If we can leave year one and we have a foundation that's built on our identity, I would tell you it's a successful year one.
I'll give you what's a successful year one for him. If it plays out anywhere close to what happened at LSU some 30 years ago. When Jared DiNardo got here, they'd been 6 straight losing seasons. They lost the opener. They were big underdogs. They were playing a top 5 Texas A&M team on the road, but they showed out. Okay, they didn't get run out of the stadium. They'd been run out of that stadium before. They didn't get run out of the stadium. Then they came back on the road the second week, and they beat Mississippi State and beat them pretty soundly. And then they came back home, and it was to bring back the magic game, and they beat Auburn. And all of a sudden, you had some real hope. And at the end of the season, you finished with a winning record. You went to a minor bowl game, and you won it, and everybody around here was pretty happy. The landscape of college football has changed, to be sure. But in that first month, you got a neutral site game against Baylor. It was got a coach on the hot seat.
Auburn 7-point favorites in that game.
They are 7. Okay.
There was like a pick 'em last year when they played. I was big on Baylor, and Auburn won.
That game's in Houston?
This one's in Atlanta.
Excuse me. Okay. Baylor, Florida, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee are all on the schedule before you get out of the first week in October. Go out there against 2 or 3 of those teams. Yeah, I'm not saying you got to win them all. They're not going to win all of those games. But if you could go 2-2 in those games, and I can't believe I'm putting Vanderbilt in there, but you go 2-2, and you're going to have people at least encouraged that you know what you're talking about and you're moving in the right direction. That's what happened in '95 for LSU. For the most part, they beat the teams that they were supposed to beat, and they lost to the teams that they were supposed to lose to, with the one exception that year being the Purple Pants game. The Purple Pants game was a disaster. They were in between quarterbacks. They had some other key injuries. They decided to wear purple pants, Max. That game they probably should have won and lost. The rest of that season played out pretty much the way it was supposed to. They pulled an upset late in the season over Arkansas. If Auburn can do that, if you can get to a 7-5 season that includes a win, maybe 2 wins over teams that you're an underdog against, and don't go out and get completely hammered by somebody that is not supposed to beat you that badly, and I think that would be a successful year one. Jared DiNardo's first year was very successful by what he was expected to do, with the exception of the Purple Pants game.
All the teams that we've discussed today happen to have the easier, like, bottom half schedules in the SEC, and I don't want to just get on a schedule rant, but you know they've got some manageable games now. Unfortunately, they're
what you calling the bottom of the league? Let me ask that question.
So I'm just saying the bottom 8 schedules in the league.
Oh, okay, all right. We're
on
talking about Arkansas's on these schedules, Kentucky's on these schedules, Mississippi State's on these schedules. And I'm asking because there's some teams I don't know where to put. I don't know where to put Florida right now.
Okay,
I don't know where to put Auburn right this second.
Auburn's playing Florida, Vanderbilt, Arkansas at home, and then LSU. LSU's their circled SEC home game. You know, this is a great home environment. That's their best home game they're going to have this year. Most of their games do come on the road, so that's the one thing that goes against them. You know, at Ole Miss, at Georgia, at Tennessee, at Alabama. Those are 4 very difficult games. They'll be lucky to win one of those, I'd say. But the one thing about Auburn, you know, they haven't had a winning season since COVID. I get your comparison to the '95 team, because for once in my life I feel like an Auburn coach has a fair set of expectations. And maybe I'm just not in Auburn. Maybe I'm not in. Maybe they're being totally unrealistic. Their win total this year is 6.5, which would be better than any season since 2020.
So you get to my 7-5, and you have exceeded at least what Vegas's expectations are.
But isn't Auburn, like, can I say that their fan base is actually going to be reasonable this year? Is that unfair, or are they thinking they're going to win, 8-9 games? Because to me, I don't know how any rational fan would think that. I mean,
try not to put rational and fan in the same sentence, but
sure.
I know that the LSU fan base had been beaten down by Curly Holman, and 6 years had humbled them. It had greatly changed expectations at that time to where, for one season, okay, now it didn't continue. After that, they expected more. When LSU went back to the Independence Bowl 2 seasons later, it was considered a disappointment. I'm not saying that this holds up for any amount of time past one season, but yeah, for one season, I think that yes, if they got to a winning season, and look, there's all kinds of ways you can get to 7-5. If you eke by some of the lower teams on your schedule and you get completely blown out when you play anybody that's any good, no, that's not going to work. But if you're competitive in the games that you lose and you handle business in the games that you're supposed to win, and that's about what it's going to look like, right? They're going to be favored in 6 or 7 games, right? Ish.
Yeah, 6 probably, and I think they're going to have to steal 1 or 2 here. I will say this is the game I have circled as a banana peel for LSU, to be honest. I mean, like I said, it's their best home game.
I'm coming around to your way of thinking on that, too.
Let's say they have that 1 loss in the first batch, the 1 loss in November, and they can't lose another game. We've seen this before with Ole Miss, with Lane Kiffin, 2 years ago. They lost a 3rd game. 2024's team was great. Jackson Dart, yeah, they kind of blew it in the 4th quarter against Florida, but the real banana peel game for them was Kentucky. They lost that game, and that's what kind of kept them out of the playoff. This is a game that screams banana peel for me. Looking ahead to the bye week, maybe, October's not too bad for LSU, but Auburn, they're going to be way better offensively than they've been. I'm sorry, maybe Hugh Freeze, the offense passing by, maybe, I don't know, having 3 different offensive play callers for 3 different downs is a dumb idea.
That was a dumb idea.
But Byron Brown was top 10 in the country last year in EPA for a quarterback. Now, EPA just basically weights running quarterbacks a little bit better than
he went
say,
over
QBR.
1,000. He went over 1,000 yards last year.
So he is effective as a passer. That would put him, I think, 3rd. That would put him 3rd among SEC returning quarterbacks. Stockton and Chambliss were better in terms of EPA last year. But I like Auburn. I want to like Auburn. I just look at their schedule, and while it is easier, I did mention it's easier on paper. It's where the road games come. They've got to somehow beat Tennessee, Georgia, Ole Miss, or Bama on the road to really kind of make some noise. And I don't know that they have that kind of ceiling to really expect to win any more than maybe one of those games.
I'm coming around to you thinking on the LSU Auburn game being a banana peel, because LSU could go into that game 5-1. That's realistic. 4-2, and even if LSU is 4-2, they would probably still be ranked. If Auburn beats a ranked LSU team in October at Jordan-Hare, that's going to be a big deal for Alex Golesh. That's going to be one of those, hey, that wasn't one of the games that we had circled as a win. You know what the line is on that game right now? I would guess
they're not going to have one set. I can estimate it, but there's not.
My
one
guess is that
DraftKings.
LSU would be right this second about a 4 or 5 point favorite.
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay,
I think you're about right. They'll be just over 4 points.
Outside of the field goal margin, that is not a game that Auburn is supposed to win, even at home. If they do, then that will be one of the building blocks that he'll talk about.
That's a series where the home team's always kind of had an advantage, back and forth
for a long
so
time.
many years.
Yeah, for a long time.
That's history, and they're different coaches, different teams, so maybe trends don't really matter there. But
I like the quarterback too, and Golesh talked about bringing Byron Brown with him from USF.
Byron Brown is one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and he's shown that over the years. What's got to happen for Byron is he's just got to continue to be him every single day. And what gives him confidence is everything that we've preached from day one. It's your daily process. It's how you come in that building. It's how you treat people. It's how you take care of your body. It's how you show up to work. It's truly how your locker looks, how you approach getting on the field, off the field, how you communicate on the sideline, on top of how you actually work when it's time to go to work. And Byram's just got to be him. The confidence that he's going to be the best version of him every single day should give confidence to everybody around him, players, coaches, support staff. And ultimately, if he's the best version of him every single day, we'll get to where we got to get to on the field.
Senior quarterback, senior running back, senior receiver, 3 senior offensive linemen, senior tight end. There's something to work with that offense.
Well, they do lose, Cam Coleman, who
went to Texas.
Went to Texas. They do lose Eric Singleton, 2 good receivers that Auburn had last year.
That was supposed to be the strength of that offense last year.
However, they replaced him with 2 South Florida receivers, who Byron Brown already has, some camaraderie with, which I think is important. They didn't bring in a bunch of guys from elsewhere. They're not just promoting some freshman at Auburn. Byron Brown's used to throwing to these guys, and that could help out a lot as well.
We are brought to you by Louisiana Health and Injury Centers, helping you deal with pain. Dr. Michael Goff and his staff have done a great job for our family over the years. So if you've got muscle soreness, if you've got back pain, if you've got neck pain, if you've got those ailments that are keeping you from getting around as well as you'd like, or costing you a good night's sleep, just hurting, it kind of becomes the center of everything that you're dealing with, man. To get that pain to go away is a godsend. Let them work with you. An exercise and stretching program that could loosen things up, maybe a dry needle or electric nerve stimulation, cryo, ultrasound therapy, an adjustment that could help you out, get you to feeling better, get you down the road. They've done such a great job for me and many members of our family. Airline Highway, Plank Road, Jefferson Highway near Drusilla, Dr. Michael Goff, Louisiana Health and Injury Centers. We'll take a break from the football for just a second because we got our consensus golf picks are coming up next.
Golf season is not over.
Golf season is not over. Elvis is playing the clubs this week. Scotty Scheffler's going to the 3M. We're going to probably throw him out. We'll tell you about that when we come back. Live at Snow's, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Don't forget our friends at K&M Automotive at 8445 Segan Lane, just off of Perkins, between Perkins and I-10. It's the only place I take my vehicle. Jason Payne, going to give you an honest deal. Not going to upcharge you for unnecessary work. Now, because of it, he has so much repeat business that it's busy. If you bring it in and it's too busy at that time, he will schedule a more convenient time for you and for them. So you're not just sitting around. You come in, they want you busy, and you just sit there and wait and wait and wait for hours upon hours upon hours. Not going to happen at K&M Automotive. Tell them you heard it right here, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. My buddy Jason Payne at K&M Automotive, 8445 Segan Lane, just off of Perkins, across Segan from Ambrosia Bakery.
Our Wednesday consensus golf picks are brought to you by Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown.
All right, the 3M this week. Unfortunately, Wes Reynolds unable to be with us today, but he did send us his picks today. So we've got Max, your picks, and his picks. A couple of stories going into the 3M, which, by the way, I like this tournament. Maybe just gives me good vibes of sports starting to come back in the COVID year. The Rocket Mortgage and the 3M, I remember that about that summer. But two stories going into this thing. Number one, Scotty Scheffler's playing, and that's unusual to me. Coming off of the Open, coming back, the long trip. This is not an elevated event, and like I said, Elvis isn't going to play the club circuit very often. He's there. Jordan Spieth is not, and the reason that's a story is because up until just a few days ago, he was supposed to be and has pulled out of this thing, and he had an absolutely dreadful Open. I think he finished in fourth or fifth to last, so not sure what's going on with him. So those are the two stories going in there, and I think you guys are going to take a look at the non-Scheffler markets here to try to make some money.
Yeah, that's the way Wes is going about it, winner without Scheffler, and I will say, I consider betting just Scotty this week. He's about plus 275 out there. He was plus about 600 last week, so he's 6-1 last week at an Open Championship with a great field. And he was top 5 in the tournament. He was number 1 in strokes gained tee to green, just couldn't putt very well. So maybe going to a birdie fest, which is his only win came earlier this year at the American Express, which is the birdie fest. So I thought about going that way, but I understand why Wes would avoid him entirely with his market. He's going to start his card with Doug Gim at 40-1. A pretty good player who I've typically liked in some of these courses where there's a lot of trouble out here. There's a lot of water hazards, especially off the tee, so you have to keep the ball in play. And while driving, distance is certainly a factor. You'd like to be able to hit it far, and you can club down a little bit. Just finding fairways is something that Doug Gim does a very good job at. So I understand the case for Doug Gim at 40-1. Ben James is 40-1, another a recent player coming off of amateur status. You think about Jackson Coyven is getting a lot of the accolades in terms of being the best amateur since Tiger Woods. But Ben James, another great amateur in this class, finished 4th place last week at the Altfield event, the Corrales Punta Cana Championship. And he's like I mentioned, a great amateur track record, but also a pretty good start to his PGA Tour career so far. Finished 23rd at the U.S. Open. Max Homa is 40-1, someone we trust to win when he gets there, but he hasn't been in his winning ways a whole lot as of late, just not really playing good golf in the last 3 years or so. However, starting to get it going a little bit. Finished runner-up the John Deere Classic when Ben Coles completely bottled it and actually ended up finishing third, so it ended up being a runner-up finish for Homa in that event. Followed it up with the 28th last week at the Open Championship, so starting to play better golf, and any signs with Max Homa, I understand the case for him as well. Johnny Kiefer, 50-1, a great long hitter who had a great run overseas. Finished third at the Scottish Open. Made the cut at the Open last week. So, see the case for Johnny Kiefer. I don't know if this course is the best fit for him, but playing him at 50-1 without Scheffler, I understand the case for Johnny Kiefer from West there. He's got Matt Meisner at 50-1 as well. William Mao, 66-1, who's a really popular pick this week. Hitting his irons really, really well as of late. Finished 10th last week, or a couple weeks ago, at the ISCO, another one of those alt-field events, and also finished top 10 last year at the 3M Open. Jesper Svensson, the Swede, is 90-1 this week. He is a long hitter. I understand he'll be able to club down a little bit, and I think, if I remember correctly, just pulling up his stats here, in the past, he's also had a decent finish. Yes, he finished 14th last year at the 3M Open. And then Joel Damon, 160-1, a real bomb at this point. Just going off of him, a guy who has won before in the PGA Tour, the Corrales Punta Cana. He finished 24th at last week's Punta Cana. Really been struggling with the putter, but maybe he gets it going on the bent grass greens this week. For myself, I am going to go pretty similar here, except I'm going to go with Scheffler markets. Maybe Scheffler beats me. I don't know. He's only won once this year, and is he going to be that motivated to win this week? Sure, I guess he wants a win. Maybe
he's
he wants
going. I don't mean to interrupt you, but sometimes you see this in horse racing. Okay, you get a guy that's running in a horse that's running in stakes company can't quite get there. They'll drop them in for a tag. They'll drop them in at a lower level. They'll drop them from stakes races into allowance company, or allowance horses into claiming company, and just drop them in for a tag. Okay, that's kind of what it feels like with Scotty to me. He's dropping in for a tag here.
If you want to go without Scheffler, I understand it, and I might split it up in some way. At least a couple of these guys. The big thing is, I think you can look at the odds really to determine this. Some of the players you look at, you might get 50-1 with Scheffler, and then like 45-1 without. Yeah, you should probably go without him, because the odds difference isn't that big a deal. Yeah. Just depends which golfer you get. So I would shop around. If you want to look at the without Scheffler markets, I understand these cases. I'm going to start my card with Tom Kim at 33-1. Somebody who is accurate off the tee and won recently. I kind of regret that I missed out on him when he won at the Scottish Open. He had such a great track record there on links golf. He missed the cut last week, the Open, so he's got a chance to kind of get back early. He hit his irons really well, just was kind of erratic off the tee for a change, missed some putts there. So ultimately, I don't think it was the worst finish ever for him, despite missing the cut at the Open. He was coming off that big win at the Scottish, so I think he comes back here. He was third at the U.S. Open. He's playing really, really good golf, and I think 33-1 for someone of his stature, who's got 4 PGA Tour victories, I think it makes sense to start with him at 33-1. I'm also going to go with Doug Gim at 50-1 in the with Scheffler markets, 40-1 as Wes mentioned in the without Scheffler markets. Either way you want to play that, I think it makes sense. An accurate player off the tee. I kind of mentioned the case for him earlier. Ben James as well. I'm going to play him at 51-1. Talked about his amateur track record. Max Homa, I'm going to play him. So we've got 3 consensus picks there: Gim, James, and Homa. I think Homa, he's just starting to find it. He shows any bit of form, and in this type of field with some real losers in Scotty Scheffler, I think I can play him at 61. I can justify him because I actually think on Sunday, when he gets in the mix, he could actually close things out. Michael Brennan is 7-1, a long hitter who will also be able to club down a little bit to find the fairway. Not playing the best golf as of late, but he has shown that he can do it. He's won last year in one of the fall events, the 2025 Bank of Utah Championship. So hopefully he can find enough fairways. Just not a very good putter, so we've got to find a way to get things going on the greens. Ben Coles is 74-1. Charlie, you You were at the dismay of Ben Coles a couple of weeks ago, weren't you, where he did not close things out. And it's tough to be going back.
Oh, that's my friend from the John Deere.
The choke artist
Yeah,
from the John Deere.
yeah.
And, yes, he has choked in both the real chances that he's had on the PGA Tour. But I'm going to go back to him here just because of the price. He has got top 25 finishes in his last 4 starts. That includes the U.S. Open victory. We talked about his Korn Ferry run that he was on. He won on the Korn Ferry Tour earlier this year. So I'm going to play him. He's got top 25s in his last 2 appearances here at TPC's Twin Cities. So Ben Coles just going to play the price there at 74-1. And then a couple long shots at triple-digit odds. Emiliano Grillo, I don't know how. He's 100-1 at DraftKings. That's with Scheffler. You can look at him without Scheffler markets. But Grillo, I really love him this week. Somebody who excels at a fairway finder type of golf course. He's starting to play a little bit better with his iron play, and his putter is always a weakness, but he's actually gained with his putter the last 3 events. He's finished top 30 in his last 3 events, and he has probably the best 3M Open track record of anyone. 2 top 5 finishes, and then top 25 finishes in all but 1 of his starts. So 5 out of 6. He has always been in the mix here. He just finds something here in Blaine, Minnesota. So I like Emiliano Grillo's price at 100-1. I think that might not be available much longer at DraftKings, so go get down on that now. And another player who I've hit over in the past, 180-1, Austin Eckroat. He won at Jack's Place in Florida, PGA National. That's another course with a lot of water hazards off the tee, so I think it makes sense for him to maybe get things going this week. So we've got 3 consensus picks. Doug Gim, Ben James, Max Homa. They are all 40-1 in the without Scheffler markets. You can find them at various prices around 50-1 or better in the with Scheffler markets. So Doug Gim, Ben James, Max Homa are 3 consensus picks this week.
Consensus Golf Picks are brought to you by Dana Brown at the law offices of O.C. Brown. The initial consultation is always free, no matter what your legal needs are. Jimmy and I both used Dana and his team of attorneys many times over the years, helping you out. For Jimmy, it was some things after his father passed. For us, other legal things that you can get the expert opinion on. 343-1111 to schedule that initial consultation. Dana Brown carrying on his father OC's legacy, a law firm of O.C. Brown. OCBrown.com and 343-1111. We'll get back to SEC Media Days when we return here live at Snow's Live at Lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Don't forget our friends at United Community Bank, the local way to bank big with locations from Baton Rouge to Golden Meadow. We've been serving the people of Southern Louisiana for over 50 years. You know, at United Community Bank, your business is our business. We support the hardworking folks behind local business, all the way from initial startup loans to ongoing planning and assessments. United Community Bank is here for you. Prentice Wilkes, Heath Muir, Nicole Glover, Hunter Creed, David Campbell, and David Henry. Stop on by and discuss how we can help your business today. United Community Bank, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Live at Lunch with Ott and Hanny from Snow Seafood and Steak in Gonzales on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
We're going to sync up live here from Media Days, and Pete Golding has just gone to the podium. Let's hear a little bit from the Ole Miss head coach.
Really, really remarkable. That makes Ole Miss such a special place. So really appreciative to our students and to the community and the involvement of not only my family, but our program and our players. And I think if you come to Oxford and you come to a game, I think that's something that you definitely feel. You know, I think obviously coming off the success of last year when you're going into an off season, you know, you look at those lessons, you know, that you kind of learned throughout the season and towards the end of the season when it didn't go exactly how you saw it going. And you try to figure out, all right, how can we do it better? And that's what we've been doing. You know, to me, since January 9th, it's how you evaluate the program and how do we do it better and work harder to take every step, all right, in every area of our program to improve. And I think that's year in and year out. I think within that, when you look at improvement and when you look at consistency and performance at other places and places that I've been, stability and schemes are so important to that. And so I was really, really, really glad that I was able to retain a lot of really good staff on both sides of the ball, really on all three phases. And when you look at offense and keeping Joe Judge, who's done an unbelievable job, bringing John David Baker back, who was the co-offensive coordinator in 2023, that obviously had been in the system, went off, got his teeth cut, right, called really good offenses at East Carolina, did a really good job to get him back, to be able to keep John Garrison as our offensive line coach, in a system that this will be the 7th year of that offensive system at Ole Miss. And then on the other side of the ball, to be able to keep B. Brown and that defensive staff and Randall Joyner and all those guys that have been with me for so long, to be able to keep that stability within that room, to be able to keep Coach Schoonover and our special teams. So we're able to keep stability, in all three phases, which I think is so important for development of your players. For freshmen to become sophomores and sophomores to become juniors, right, to learn more about those languages and those systems. So I was really fortunate to be able to keep and retain a lot of those guys. I think we've been really fortunate to add a lot of really good human beings into both sides of the ball. And it just so happened to be a very unique year to where a lot of these guys were former Ole Miss alum, and the Terrence Metcalfs of the world, and the Michael Spurlocks of the world, and the Moncriefs of the world, and the Marcus Woodsons of the world. And they've created so much value for our players, not only from a relationship standpoint, right, but the investment into them and making them better human beings has been really awesome to see, in the spring. So really appreciative of our staff and of our players of how they've worked. Since January the 9th, we still know that there's a lot of work to be done. We know every season is independent of their own, right? The legacy of last year's team is over, right? We can learn from that, obviously, moving forward, which we have all spring, and how do we do certain things better and consistently do it, on a more consistent basis. But this is a new group, and we added 50 new players into the spring, 29 via transfer portal, and then 22 from a high school standpoint, and added a couple more of those in May to get us to 51. So seeing that gel and come together has been really cool. And part of that reason, I think, is 3 of the guys that we brought here today, obviously in Trinidad and Kewan and Will. Not only, obviously, y'all know they're really good players. I'm not going to talk to you about that. Y'all already know that. But, rule number 1 in our program is be a good dude, and that ain't too hard. And I got 2 boys, like Greg talked about. And I hope one day my 2 boys are like one of these 3. They're tough. They're competitive. They love football. That's who we look for, right, from a recruiting standpoint that we want into our program. But more importantly, they're good people. They affect the people around them in a really positive manner. And so it's been really cool to see a lot of really good players, new players come in, right, but they're adapted to the guys that have been there, right, and understand the culture and the expectation, and for them to bring them with them has been really cool to see. So super excited y'all get to hang out with Kewan, Trinidad, and Will, because you'll see it when you're talking to them. Just awesome dudes, really good football players, but are a big part of the culture and where we're at, because we got a lot of guys in our locker room like that, and it's really cool, and it's a really unique team. But we know every season brings challenges. Obviously, we're excited for the challenge. We know there's still a lot of work to do. Obviously, getting into camp here starting on August 6th, got to stay healthy and making sure we're getting guys in the right spot. I think it's really important for us this year from a personnel standpoint. I think we've created a lot of depth across the board on both sides of the ball to make sure we're using those pieces effectively and hold them accountable. But really like where we're at, and just really appreciative of our staff and our players and their hard work, and excited and playing a really good Louisville team to start the season at a neutral site. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Coach Golding. If you have a question, Tommy, Jalen, or Kylie will get a microphone to you. So we'll go ahead and go right over here in front of us, Coach, to the right-hand side.
Hey there, Pete. Sam Hutchins with the Clarion Ledger. Just now that you're mostly through your first offseason as a head coach, what's been the biggest difference between this offseason and the other ones at Ole Miss? And then what have you learned from that offseason as a head coach?
The first thing, obviously, in kind of the turmoil of everything going on and the retention of people and getting the thing fixed is, we had to hire a strength and conditioning coach, because that's always the first thing you get back, January 9th from the game. They get a little bit of a break, but then you start ready to, for your off-season program. So bringing in Paul Constantine, number 1, who was our number 2 when I was at Alabama. He was the number 2 at the Falcons, so he came from, to us from Atlanta. and kind of switching that model in the weight room to a velocity-based training model, which is speed of the bar, and getting his staff, because I feel like the game's now kind of a blend between college and NFL. I don't think it's old school college, and it's not all the way to the NFL. So I thought it was really important to get an NFL mind that's been in this conference and had success, but also been at the NFL, and be really smart on how do we set up our offseason, not only in the weight room from a strength and conditioning training standpoint, but from a football intelligence and football school and the spring model and all that. To me, it's not exactly the same like it used to be based on how long the season is. So we kind of broke it up into 3 phases in the offseason, very much NFL, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and then we broke up the summer into block 1 and block 2. So different model for the players. To me, when you're recruiting, all these guys want to get developed at their craft, so we look at it every day. There's an opportunity for guys to come into our building and develop and improve at their craft. So in order to do that, you have to have something every day. And so, when our players are on campus, our coaches are on campus, and that's a model that I kind of changed from our previous places that we had been. But I like the progression. I like where we're at. They're about to come up on, a discretionary week next week, so we're going to give them a week off, and then they'll have a little OTA model prior to fall camp. But a little different structure than they were used to. But I'm just really, really big on the why. And as long as you can tell them why, and all right, this is the reason why, and I hear the results. I think they've seen the results throughout the spring in their bodies and their speed and their jumps and all those things from a weight room standpoint. And then I think it's allowed us for coaches to really slow down the install, to really be able to teach these 50 new guys that we got coming in that, now it's not, hey, I hope they get it. You're investing a lot into these guys, right, in order to play in the fall. And we got to make sure that we're teaching it the right way and the right progression. So that definitely changed it up. But, obviously, the principles are still the same as the foundation of strength and then conditioning and football intelligence, and then getting into our player run model.
Okay, we'll go in the section in front of me, about 4 rows back.
Pete, Caleb Saylor, Super Talk, Mississippi. You spoke about how you've made some changes within the program, but going from defensive coordinator to head coach, how have you changed?
Well, I'm a little skinnier. Obviously, when you're responsible for a side of the ball, you run it like it's your team. And so no different than a defensive unit meeting, right? There's things that you believe in that you want to make sure that you get across, but you also have really good other defensive coaches that you have to allow to coach. And so, when I made the transition and I knew I was still going to call the defense by talking to other people, and that's really the only reason that was keeping me from taking a head job, was I loved being a coordinator, was that I was going to hire guys that have to do all the head coach bullshit that I don't enjoy doing, to where I can still focus on coaching football and being around our guys. And so part of the staff build of the Tom Lukes of the world and the Todd Cooley's of the world, right, and the Austin Thomases of the world, those guys around me, are for that they handle all that crap, right, and they keep it off of my desk so that we can focus on still recruiting really good players and coaching good football. And so, that piece to me was really, really important. So your staff meeting is a little bigger than your unit meeting was, right? Your team meeting is a little bigger than your defensive unit meeting was, but the principles are the same. And I think it's unique for me. I'd already been there 3.5 years. They knew why I came, and they knew I was staying regardless of the role. So that buy-in has been a little different. But the delegation piece is something that has been a process for me throughout it. Really, all right, what are you going to take your hands off and let them go do their job and get the hell out of their way, right? Instead of not try to micromanage everything, and everything's got to be perfect and all those things. But probably the delegation component, and then really deciding, no, hey, we're going to keep our focus here, right? And let Coach Cooley and let Tom Luke and let all those guys who are really good at their job handle that for you, which has been really, really awesome.
We're going to stay in the center aisle, right down 3rd row. Microphone's right behind you.
Jake Thompson, Ole Miss Spirit. Pete, right here. The school rolled out the Heisman campaign, I guess, for Trinidad and Kiwan yesterday, and just kind of what went into kind of combining the two and the process of putting it out so early at the start of the season.
Number one, I think, individual accolades, in my opinion, come from team success. And so that was a body of work, I think, from last season for both those guys to have really, really unique individual years because of a lot of our really, really good players around them. And I think they'd be the first ones to tell you that. But I do think, a lot of these guys are putting a lot in, and they're working extremely hard, and we demand a lot out of them, that there are some of these individual awards for them that are important to them. and it's not going to take away from what they need to do to win the football game. And I think 5 will be the first one to tell you that. If we need to throw it 60 times to win, let's throw it 60 times to win. And so, your concern always outside looking in is, hey, does this become a distraction? Those two are wired the right way. Right. And so I'm not concerned with how they're going to practice and how they're going to prepare. They're going to do everything that they can to win the football game. And they know that's based on their preparation. And so I have zero concern of it affecting them and becoming an issue. So I'm all about putting people in position to have success, whatever that is. I feel like that's why they call us coach. It's no different for a player for the next 40 years of their life. It's our responsibility to educate them and equip them, right, to have success. And to me, this is just an avenue. You got 2 really elite players that are coming off really, really good years that still have a lot of really good players around them in the same system that are set up to have another really, really good year. And so I think it's part of our responsibility to put them in position to have as much success as they can, that being part of it.
All right, we wanted to let you hear a little bit of Pete Golding. If the FCC sends us a little coupon for that, we're going to just forward that to Oxford. He's
getting back at us in all ways.
Yeah, the retention of staff was the interesting part there to me. He talked about being able to retain staff, so he puts a positive face on this. I would too, but you lost your offensive coordinator and you lost your offensive heartbeat up at the top with Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss, okay? So now you have a sort of a two-headed OC. Joe Judge is the head coach of offense and the quarterback's coach. I don't know what head coach of offense means because they have an offensive coordinator, which is John David Baker, who came over from East Carolina. So how they're going to handle game planning and actual play calling, I don't know. The second thing is that when you talk about defense, and he talked about retaining Brian Brown, who is now the defensive coordinator, has been on his staff. A lot of times when guys ascend from coordinators' roles to head coaches, they have a hard time letting go of that. Les Miles, for 10 years, he wanted to just grab that play sheet. Those would be the two things to me. Who's going to be the heartbeat of your offensive staff? Because that was Kiffin, and with Weiss right behind him. And then is Golding going to be able to let go and let Brown run his defense? Those would be the two questions. And then you brought in another strength and conditioning coach. That's fine. Those two things on the offensive defense is where I'd be focused.
Yeah, I've got questions on both sides, but losing your play caller, but then defense, like you mentioned, I mean, you get elevated, and I tend to think a lot of people give way too much credit to this is the defensive-minded coach. They're going to build through that way. And Brent Venables, I'd say Oklahoma's had a pretty good defense for some time, but they're a lot more the Dave Aranda types, I feel like, where they're defensive-minded coaches and they haven't had a defense. It's a bit of head coach. I think that happens more often than not, actually.
So we'll see. Wanted to let you hear a little bit because, like it or not, LSU and Ole Miss, at least until the season starts and then certainly in week 3, are going to be intertwined within the story. How's Lane Kiffin doing at his new place? How's Pete Golding doing as he left? So I wanted to let you listen to just a few minutes of that. We'll come back here at Snow's Seafood and Steak Airline at 74 in Gonzales. Live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.